Welcome to another episode of the 39A podcast. This is Neetika Vishwanath from Project 39A, and we are a criminal justice program based out of the National Law University in Delhi. For this episode, we are in conversation with Professor Probol Chaudhary about the case of Dhananjay Chatterjee. Dhananjay was executed 16 years ago after being in imprisonment for 14 years on 14th August 2004. This was at the Alipur Central Correctional Home in Kolkata. Dhananjay was executed for the rape and murder of an 18-year-old Hital Parekh on 5th March 1990. Mr. Chaudhary is a statistician and a professor of theoretical statistics and mathematics at the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata. Professor Chaudhary, along with Professor Debashish Sen Gupta, pre-investigated Dhananjay's case after the execution between 2005 and 2012. They found significant concerns with the evidence that was used to convict Dhananjay. Thank you, Probol, for joining us for the 39A podcast.
You're most welcome.
So, Probol, I want to start the conversation with trying to understand your own first memory of this case and what got you and Debashish invested in this case and led to the decision of conducting these investigations.
As far as my memory goes, we first came to know about the case when the hanging took place in 2004. When the murder took place, we were not in the country, so we didn't know about it at that time. And we were at that time PhD students completing our studies abroad, and we returned at the end of 1990. By then there was nothing in the media, but this case came back in a very big way in the media in 2004, and that's the time when we became interested in that. In fact, that was a time I remember, whether I take a bus or a train, everybody is talking about this case, and the people in the city were sharply divided on whether there should be hanging or there should not be hanging. That's my first memory that about this case. And then coming back to your other question, well, I think because we were hearing so much about it in the media as well as in the public conversation, we decided to take a look at the court verdicts. It was not easy for us to get any other court verdict except the Supreme Court verdict, because that was easily available online at that time. So we went to the Supreme Court verdict, and it immediately caught our attention because Dhananjay was convicted and sentenced purely based on circumstantial evidence. Okay, and when it's a case based on circumstantial evidence, time becomes a very important factor. Okay, anybody knows that. Okay, so we started to follow the timeline, and we saw a lot of contradictions there. First of all, if you read the first few sentences in the Supreme Court verdict, you'll see that the time allowed to Dhananjay for committing the crime was, according to Supreme Court verdict, it's only 15 minutes. But then you read through the sentences, and then you find that maybe he had altogether at most half an hour, because at 5:20 p.m. the mother left the apartment and she came back at 5:50. So at most half an hour. In between, this entire crime was committed, and he was convicted of a rape and a murder that involved 21 heinous injuries. The girl was strangulated and her Howard bone was broken. Okay, we talked to the doctor. It's not very easy to break the Howard bone unless you strangulate somebody for a prolonged period, because that's a part of your voice box, and that doesn't break very easily unless somebody is severely strangulated for a prolonged period. Then there were other contradictions that we started finding as we found more and more documents from the court judgment and the testimonies. We became more and more curious, because it's like, we used to think that criminal investigation is like a scientific study. It's like you should start from a zero hypothesis and then you should build the case based on the evidence that you gather. On the other hand, we increasingly felt as we went through the documents is that as if the prosecution had a preconceived theory in their mind, and they are framing arguments they were manufacturing evidence to fit into their case. Okay, and that's completely puzzled me that somebody was hanged based on such manufactured and framed evidence. And then we went and visited the native village of Dhananjay, talked to his family members, and then we talked to several other people. And we were increasingly getting convinced that there is something absolutely wrong in the entire judgment here. And there must be a serious miscarriage of justice. And that's what led us to this investigation.
Right. Prabal, I want to sort of go back again to that very moment where you realized that, yes, it made you curious, and there was so much in the public discourse about the case and so much conversation on whether he should be hanged or not. But what was that moment like when you decided that, yes, we are interested, and so much so that now we are actually going to go back to his hometown, talk to his family, talk to the investigating officers? What led you to sort of take that extra step? Because a lot of us may get curious about these things, may get interested and read about that, but that extra step of actually doing this investigation, what was that like? If you could revisit that for us.
I think it's difficult to explain. I mean, this case is a very interesting case, and if you are a scientist, in my opinion, who sort of tries to discover the truth, this is a very challenging and really intriguing case. It was not proving Dhananjay innocent that got at least myself into the case. It was finding the truth. So it's like, I remember that there were certain puzzles that we could not solve. For example, there was an incident like the mother returned, but the mother knocked on the door, but she asked people to break the door within 5 minutes. Why? It's like, I will come back to my apartment. Suppose my daughter or my sister is sleeping there, and I knock on the door and I don't hear anything. There are lots of possibilities. Maybe the person has gone out. Maybe the person is in the toilet. It was the main entrance of the apartment, not the door of the room of that particular person. Okay, and then am I going to ask somebody to break the door within 5 to 10 minutes, or I'm going to try probably several things for an hour or two before I order somebody to break the house? Okay, so why such things? What are the reasons behind such strange behavior? Okay, so it's like once you become curious, it makes you more curious, and it's like you can't sleep at some point of time. These are probably our personal attitude, it's like sometimes you find such interesting mysteries and you sort of break your head on solving it. It's like that essentially. Okay, we were not activists, or we were not trying to prove somebody innocent, or we were not trying to prove that how bad death penalty might be. It was more finding the truth, until I find the truth, I can't sleep. It's like that.
And Prabal, what all did this investigation entail, and how long did it take, and what were the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, see, the biggest challenge was, this was not part of our main profession, So we had our teaching responsibilities, we had our research commitments, we had our students, and then we had to find time for this. And then everybody has family complications. Like my mother passed away sometime in between, and she was really sick. Debashish's father was also very sick for a prolonged period, and he passed away. So there were occasions when we were completely out of touch with this case, and there was no follow-up or anything. That was one big challenge, to find time for this. At that time, if we were able to start the investigation right after the murder, things would have been different. If somebody would have allowed us to go to the spot, investigate the spot and talk to the people, that would have been one thing. But starting it after 14 years, just reading the document and then talking to people, finding the people first and then talking to people, it was a big challenge.
Just for the audience, Prabal, could you clarify which year you started reinvestigating the case?
It was almost shortly after the hanging. The hanging took place in August 2004, and I think we visited their family probably within a month or two. I, as well as my friends, visited their family, and I would take that as the beginning of the reinvestigation. We didn't have any documents or papers immediately with us except the court verdict. But we started talking to people, and fortunately, I knew some people in Lal Bazar, so some of the officers were retired by then, those who were involved with the case, and we reached them and we talked to them, and that's how we started. To come to the final conclusion and the final reconstruction of what we think actually happened on that day when Hetal was murdered, that probably took altogether, it may be about 10 to 11 years. But you have to keep in mind that we were not working continuously. There are gaps of a couple of years sometime that we didn't do anything. One good thing that kept us driving is that we became very close to family of Dhananjay. So Dhananjay's brother kept in touch with us, Dhananjay's sister kept in touch with us, and we also occasionally called them and talked to them. So this family connection, so we also became part of their family in some way. So they accepted us very well. In fact, they have very sharp views about people from Calcutta after this incident. Okay, and which is natural, these people living in remote villages, the way the person was hanged and the way these things went, it's like there were several times the hanging was rescheduled, and the family was on some kind of a dharna in Calcutta for some time. So the family went through a real nightmare. Okay, so after that, it was difficult for us to be acceptable to the family for a while, but we succeeded. And I think after we became part of that family, that kept us sort of active in the case. I mean, that was a very positive thing that helped us.
So, Prabal, for how many years did the investigation go on? And what were the challenges you faced in, since you looked at a lot of the case records, what were the challenges in accessing the case records? And also, were there any challenges in talking to the police personnel who were involved in this case?
Some of the court documents were easily available, but some of the court documents were not so easily available. So we had to pursue through the lawyers and the clerks in the court to get the original paper book. And see, one unfortunate thing is that the lawyer who represented Dhananjay at the trial court, he passed away. So if he were alive and we could talk to him, probably many of the documents are would have been much easier for me to get. Unfortunately, that was not possible. And also, Dhananjay's family did not have any of the documents. Getting the original lower court document was the biggest challenge. And also, we could never get access to the other materials and the material evidence, like those things, those were seized during various police operations, that we could never get. But we could get all the original testimonies given by the witnesses to the police as well as at the court. And also we could get various pictures that the police had taken, and also some of the sketches that the police had prepared. Probably just getting the documents took us about 2 to 3 years. Okay, some people were very cooperating. For example, the forensic expert was extremely cooperating with us. In fact, he helped us a lot. But on the other hand, there were some police officers with whom we talked. They gave us time and talked to us at a stretch, but they were very hostile in the sense that they thought that we were just wasting their time. They thought that they had solved the case perfectly. They had no doubt in their mind that Dhananjay had committed this crime within half an hour, all these injuries, rape and theft. So I think we had a very mixed reaction from people.
And there's also a Bengali film that has been made on the case, which is called Dhananjay by Arindam Sil. I wanted to know, how did this film come to be made, and were you surprised that a film was made on the case?
Arindam Sil is a very celebrated film director, and so we didn't expect that somebody like him will take interest in making a film in that. So we were surprised in that sense. When he decided to make this film, he called us, and we had a long meeting in his place. By that time, one booklet that we published that came out. It was published by the publisher Guru Chandali, And that Bengali book had come out, so they had a copy of that book and they were asking questions about various things. So it was clear to us that they have read the book very carefully and questions were very relevant ones. But that was it. And then when the film was made, during that period, we were never consulted. See, it was a feature film and they had a disclaimer that all characters are fictitious. In fact, they changed the name of all the characters except Dhananjay. And that itself created a huge amount of controversy in the media before the film was released. But other than that, the film is largely based on the reconstruction of the incident that we have in our book. And they have acknowledged us as well as acknowledged the book in the film. Okay, so that book is sort of shown at the beginning of the film.
And Prabal, do you think there's been any change in the public perception about the case? And what is your assessment of the public response to your findings about this case?
There has been definitely some changes in public perception because we have received communications from people through various channels saying that this is something that was unbelievable to them. They never thought like that. They always thought that Dhananjay was guilty, but now they think that that is not the case and they are shocked. See, in our country, a large number of people have a very high respect for judiciaries. So when a case goes through lower court, high court and the Supreme Court, and then several mercy petitions are rejected by the Supreme Court as well as by the president, people sort of assume that maybe the guy has possibly committed the crime, but maybe he does not deserve death penalty. Okay, and he has suffered through several years of imprisonment, and in course of his imprisonment, everybody has said that his behavior was perfect. In fact, we talked to in charge of the Alipur jail, who had very close connection with Dhananjay, who had a lot of interaction with Dhananjay, and also the doctor in the jail. They all had a very good opinion about him. So he comes from a very religious family and he was himself a very religious person. And all along, whoever has talked to him said that he had a strong belief that eventually he will never be hanged, because he used to believe that he has not committed the crime, so God will save him eventually. And this fact that his hanging was getting rescheduled again and again, that never surprised him. He thought that it is God who is saving him again and again. In fact, he used to believe strong in this reading of the palms and the lines in the palm, and he said that death before certain age is not in his palm, so he's not going to die, so or something like that. Okay, so he was that confident. Public perception, I would have expected it to change more. I think there has been change in social media perception, I would say. Okay, well, we get still emails or other messages from people saying that, don't you think this argument that you are giving is not right? And then we have some discussion with the person and there are arguments like that. Okay, and then they say that this is some people say that oh, this is a great work, and yeah, we are happy that we are finally finding the truth. So there is some change in the public perception, but there are still a lot of people who think that what we have done is not right. What the police said must be correct, and what we are saying based on our reconstruction of this story, there must be a fallacy in it, that there must be something wrong in it. See, there is still belief. Okay, they never point out anything very convincing to us. That has never happened.
And Prabal, if I were to ask you, what were those one or two pieces of evidence that made you and Debashish believe in Dhananjay's innocence?
First of all, see, I mean, it was clear that if Dhananjay was there in the absence of the mother only for at the most half an hour, according to all police documents, then certainly he cannot commit so many injuries and a rape and a theft of a wristwatch within that short period of time. There was also, according to police report, a balcony conversation with Dhananjay during that period with other security guards who were on duty at that time. Dhananjay was off duty at that time. Okay. Apparently, when he was called, from the entrance of the building, Dhananjay came to the balcony and leaning from the balcony responded to the call. And that's an absolute lie, because in that building, right from the very construction of the building, all the balconies are covered by iron grills and nobody can lean through there. There was another very strong evidence in favor of what we are saying. The liftman repeatedly said that Dhananjay was seen walking down the stairs and he was wearing light colored cloth, and there was no soiling of the cloth or anything, and there was no blood stain or anything anywhere. And even the forensic expert to whom we talked to, he mentioned that, and that is there in his recorded testimony in the court, that there was absolutely no blood stain in any of the clothes of the suspected person that was seized by the police. So these two things convince us that he was not linked to the murder in any way. These were the main things.
And Prabal, just I think last question that I have is, what message would you leave people with, people who read about this case? What message would you want to leave with them?
Well, I guess I have message for both people as well as the police authorities and the administration. Okay, see, sometimes certain murders become very high profile murder because of the media coverage, and police becomes under tremendous pressure to quote unquote deliver justice. Okay, so they need to find the person and they need to punish the person. Okay, and that's often I have now understood after going through Dhananjay case, and then I have gone through many other cases. I will not mention specifics now. I have now understood that often police is under pressure to find a criminal, quote unquote a criminal, and convict the criminal and punish the criminal because of the media pressure. Okay, and they do not have enough opportunity or time to do the investigation, because what happened in case of Dhananjay is that by the time police came, the murder spot was completely ruined. Okay, because people had come to the flat and walked through the place and it was completely ruined. The same thing happened with Arushi Talwar's case. You know that the actual spot of murder was not immediately sealed, and so then it becomes very difficult for the police authorities to collect the evidence properly. When it comes to investigation of such crimes like murder or rape and such things, police authorities need to have some more open mind, which is probably too much to expect. And regarding common people, my main message is that don't have blind faith in judiciary or police. Everybody is a human being. Judges are also human beings. Police authorities are also human beings. They do commit mistakes. And Dhananjay case, in my opinion, is a glaring example of that.
Thank you, Prabal, for this interesting conversation and for sharing your personal journey on this case with us.
Thank you, Nitika, for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you. For everyone who's listening, we may choose to agree or disagree with Prabal's opinion on this case, but I believe it is certainly worth examining the case materials and the findings from his investigations, which are available on the website india-hang-innocent.org. The film Dhananjay is streaming on Amazon in Bengali with English subtitles. This is Nitika from Project 39A with podcast producer and my colleague Akhil Vasudeva.